Hi, shalom friends. Time is an amazing phenomena, and we often mark it on the calendar with a check or with an X. We all know of days that remind us of happiness, whether it be the day we graduated, the day we learned how to drive a car, more significant, the birth of a child, a marriage, an anniversary. These are beautiful days. And often when we look at the calendar already in a week in advance, just knowing that this very special and happy day is coming, often lifts our spirits even before the day happens. And of course, we have the other type of day, the day we lost our job, the day there was an accident, the day we heard distressing news, God forbid, the day of a death of a loved one. And these are, figuratively speaking, black days, days where there's an X. And many of us, again, looking at the calendar, knowing that this particular day and event is happening or will happen, already depresses us. But how many of us have heard of a day that does both together? That is a little bit more rare. However, in the Jewish calendar, there is such a day. It's neither a holiday in terms of festivities. On the contrary, it's a very sad day, and yet it doesn't remain sad. And I'm referring to the 9th day of Av. Those of you that are familiar with our tradition know that there's a 24-hour fast that we start on the 9th day of Av. Of the 5 occurrences, 2 that stand out are the ancient holy temple that stood in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount was destroyed, the first by the Babylonians, and hundreds of years later, on the very same day, by the Roman Empire. And we mark this event on the calendar. And upon the realization that we don't have our land, we don't have our temple, we don't feel the closeness to God as we once did, this causes us grief. And we sit on the floor, we say special prayers, we deny ourselves the creatures, the comforts of the body, and so on. And yet, strangely enough, we don't ask God forgiveness for sins, because as the sages tell us, it is called Moed. It's a special, auspicious time. It's a rendezvous with God. And why introduce sin, which is almost always associated with a festive day? As a matter of fact, the mood changes, and in the afternoon of the day of fasting, where in a practical sense, most people are beginning to feel fatigued and perhaps getting a bit of a headache. They did not eat or drink or have their morning coffee. It's precisely in the afternoon that our mood focuses on rebuilding the temple. As a matter of fact, we offer a prayer and we say to Hashem, almost as in a demand, comfort us, you owe us. You destroyed the temple with fire, you rebuild it with fire. And certainly when one envisions the third glorious temple, your mood gets uplifted. So isn't it strange? In the same 24-hour period, destruction and construction, despair and exhilaration, exile and redemption, these forces and energies come together. So I would like to offer an analogy. It's not from our sacred writings, but you might find it helpful. I know I find it helpful, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. Imagine a couple that meet and not only fall in love, but actually develop love, and they get married. And for the first couple of months, perhaps a year and a half passes, things are very good. Happiness is this couple. Each one looks forward to coming home to spend time with their spouse. And then time passes, and flaws emerge. and disagreements suddenly come to the forefront. And in the beginning, it's swept under the rug, and then it's respectfully disagreeing, and then there are moments of temper, and then as time passes on, there are these long periods of silence, and then it turns into not periods of silence, but periods of anger. And I don't have to paint the picture, because sadly, too many of us know this picture. And things progress from bad to worse to worse. And finally, they meet. They have an official meeting. They look at each other sadly. We tried talking, we tried fighting, we tried vacationing, we cried, we shouted, we pleaded. It's just not working anymore. I think for the benefit of both of us, we should separate. It's over. And sadly, they both agree that this is the most logical thing to do. So, 1 week later, and I'll say this narrative from the perspective of the man, the woman moves out, takes all of her belongings, and October 2nd is marked on his calendar with a big X. This is the day that my life ended. And he continues, October 3rd, October 4th, November 30th, December 26th, January of the following year, desperately trying to regain equilibrium, makes new friends, spends more time exercising, puts more emphasis on volunteer work, hoping and hoping that the emptiness that's inside of him will be filled. And an entire year passes. He thought he couldn't live. He finds out that he can live, but he's not truly living. And towards the end of September, he begins to feel an ache in his heart that he can't deal with. And he looks at that month of October, and October 2nd comes, and he feels again with all of the intensity, the parting, the separation, the emptiness. And he goes through the day, very difficult day for him. And then goes October 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th, and he has another project. And life continues. 1 year passes, a second year passes, a third year passes. And actually, though the year passes, he cannot allow October 2nd to pass without him feeling a weight on his heart. Finally, after 4 years of this existence, living and not living, he decides to do the unthinkable. He finds out where his former wife used to live and gets her telephone. And on October 2nd, 5 years to the date, he makes a phone call. And he's very hesitant. Hello? His wife's voice, former wife's voice, gets on. Yes! It's I know who it is. I was expecting your phone call. Yes, can we meet at Starbucks? And they meet. And 5 years have aged them. They look different. They're more mature. They're more serious. And as they're sitting by their coffee, he says to her point blank, have you found someone? Because if yes, I want to wish you luck, and I will walk out this minute. And she says, believe me, I've tried. I haven't found anyone. How about you? He says, I've tried. I've tried. I haven't found anyone either. And as they look at each other, each one realizing that the separation didn't do what they had hoped, which is to allow each other's happiness to grow in a different way, they simply look at each other and say, well, let's try again. Well, let me end the narrative with a happy ending, and that is, they make up in the Starbucks, very unromantic. And from there, things only get better and deeper and more beautiful. And they lived, yes, you got it, happily ever after. So now, October 2nd is still on the calendar. And October 2nd has an X and a check, a remembrance of the bad, and a reminder of, through the bad, a much better good. Because now they don't allow the flaws or the disagreements or the petty problems to really wedge a separation between two people that cannot live without each other. So now, if I'm permitted to use this analogy, let's extend this between us and God. We had a temple, we fell in love, God chose us, and things were really good. We got the Torah, we came into the land of Israel, we were loyal people, we brought sacrifices, God made miracles. Yeah, there's always been disagreements. We didn't always do what we had to do. And to tell you the truth, God didn't always show the miracles that the people sometimes expected. Until finally comes that bitter day, the bitter day of the destruction. And God says, okay, you don't want to live with me? You don't want to put up with me? Idolatry, keeping the Shabbos, kosher, that's too difficult? Fine. Let's see if you'll do better elsewhere. And 1,900 years pass. And we've been citizens in every country in the world. We were in Rome, we were in Persia. We were in Europe, we were in the Americas. We were in Asia. Have we found a better God? Has any of the isms, communism, capitalism, humanism, has any of them really filled us? Or do we still ache for that sense of oneness with Hashem? When it comes Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av, we look at that calendar and we lose our appetite. Our life has been changed, not for the better. We've been divorced. Terrible feeling. And we might have thought that there would have been a substitute, but bitterly we say nothing remotely comes close to being in the loving arms of Hashem. And then, if we can imagine Hashem looking down over 1900 years, has he found a more loyal people? Did he perhaps find a sect, a clan, a nation, a continent that acknowledges him, praises him? No. Hashem sees that there's no nation like his people. There's no one as loyal, as faithful, as lovable as his people. No one as holy. Comes Tisha B'Av, Hashem looks at the calendar, looks at the destruction of the temple, and says, woe is to the father who has no children. Woe is to the husband whose wife has been banished. And then on this Tisha B'Av, we say to each other, the Jewish people to God, and God to the Jewish people, let's start again. And we are convinced that this will happen. And then suddenly, from the day of an X, it turns into a day of a check. Tisha B'Av becomes then the day when there will be the greatest joy, because that's the day that it will be revealed that the painful separation that we had was actually a prelude, a preparation for the glorious days ahead of us. Well, I'm speaking to you 2 days after Tisha B'Av. We're in the 7 weeks of consolation. I hope that by our next YouTube, we'll be able to share it in the Holy Land of Israel with our beloved people, with our beloved Creator, with our holy temple, with all of the righteous individuals, and it will truly be an awesome day to celebrate. Shalom.